The air crackled with anticipation. 100 men stood ready. They were in a vast enclosed arena. Dust shifted under their feet, sweat beaded on their brows. They were about to face a silverback gorilla. This wasn't a fight for life or death, not in the truest sense. It was a test, a challenge dreamed up by a group of wealthy thrill-seekers, a spectacle designed to push the boundaries of human capability. To answer an age-old question, could man, with all his cunning and cooperation, overcome the raw power of nature? The arena was a crucible. On one side, the men armed with nothing but their wits and each other. On the other, the embodiment of primal strength. It was an uneven playing field, everyone knew that. But the men had a plan. I've stared down grizzly bears in the Alaskan wilderness. I've wrestled crocodiles in the swamps of the Everglades. But nothing could have prepared me for the sheer intensity of this moment. The tension was palpable, a living thing. It was about to explode. The men were not a random assortment. They were divided into 3 groups, each with a specific role to play. First, the agility squad. Lean and swift, these men were like panthers. They could dodge and weave, striking with speed and precision. Then came the brute force squad. Mountains of muscle, they were the wall against which the gorilla's rage would break. Their task, to hold the line, to buy time for the others. Finally, the strategists, the thinkers, the planners, they observed, they adapted. They held the fate of all 100 men in their hands. It was a testament to the adaptability of mankind, the ability to recognize individual strengths and weave them together into a cohesive force. A force, they hoped, strong enough to stand against the storm that was coming. A hush fell over the arena as a massive shape emerged from the shadows. The gorilla, a silverback, they called him. A titan among primates. His fur was like midnight, his eyes burning embers in the afternoon sun. He moved with a deceptive grace, his muscles rippling beneath his thick hide. The ground seemed to tremble with each step. He surveyed the arena, his gaze sweeping over the assembled men. It wasn't fear in his eyes, but a cold, calculating appraisal. He beat his chest, a sound like thunder echoing through the arena. It was a primal challenge, a declaration of power that sent shivers down the spines of even the bravest men. In that moment, the gorilla wasn't an animal. He was a force of nature, an earthquake given form, and the men, they were about to feel his wrath. The signal was given. The strategists, perched atop a makeshift platform, unleashed their first wave. The agility squad, armed with nets and bowlers, darted forward. Their movements were a blur. They swarmed the gorilla, their nets flying out like silken traps. Some landed, momentarily entangling the beast. But the gorilla, enraged, tore through them as if they were cobwebs. The brute force squad seized the opportunity. They charged in, their combined weight slamming into the gorilla's flanks. For a moment it seemed like they had him, but the gorilla roared, a sound that shook the very foundations of the arena and hurled the men aside like rag dolls. This was no ordinary opponent. This was a creature of immense power, driven by instinct and fury. The men, for all their planning, had underestimated the challenge before them. They were outmatched, but they were not out yet. Section 5. First Blood. The gorilla, enraged, lashed out with a powerful arm. A young man from the agility squad, caught off guard, cried out as he was sent flying through the air. He landed with a sickening thud. A hush fell over the arena. The sight of their fallen comrade seemed to momentarily break the spell. The men hesitated, their carefully crafted plan crumbling in the face of real danger. The gorilla, sensing their fear, beat his chest once more, a triumphant roar that echoed through the arena. It was a message. A warning. The men had drawn first blood, yes, but they had also awakened a primal rage that threatened to consume them all. They needed a new plan, and they needed it fast. The strategists huddled, their faces grim. The initial plan was failing. The gorilla was too strong, too fast, too enraged to be subdued by conventional means. They needed a new strategy, something unorthodox, something desperate. One of them, a wiry man with eyes that missed nothing, spoke up. "We need to distract him, create chaos, something to overwhelm his senses and give us an opening." The others listened intently. They knew the risks. This wasn't a game anymore. This was about survival. The order went out. The men, their faces grim, prepared for a different kind of battle, a battle not just of strength but of cunning and wit. They were fighting for their lives now, and they would use every tool at their disposal. The arena erupted in a cacophony of sound. The men, following their new plan, became a whirlwind of controlled chaos. They banged on drums, blew whistles and shouted at the top of their lungs. The gorilla, overwhelmed by the sensory overload, thrashed and roared in confusion. The noise seemed to disorient him, his usual confidence shaken. This was the moment they had been waiting for. While the gorilla was distracted, a group of men, working with practiced precision, unfurled a massive net. It had been woven from the strongest fibers they could find, reinforced with steel cables. This wasn't just a net, it was a trap. The gorilla, momentarily stunned by the sudden silence that followed the cacophony, didn't see the net until it was too late. The net fell, enveloping the gorilla in its suffocating embrace. The men, their hearts pounding, rushed forward, pulling on the ropes with all their might. The gorilla struggled mightily, his roars echoing through the arena. For a moment, it was a tug-of-war. Man versus beast, but the men, united in their purpose, had the advantage. Slowly, surely, they pulled the gorilla down, pinning his massive limbs to the ground. A cheer went up from the men. They had done it. They had defeated the mighty silverback, but the victory felt hollow. The gorilla, once a symbol of untamed power, lay defeated, his eyes filled with a strange mix of fear and resignation. In that moment, looking down at the creature they had subdued, the men felt a pang of something else, not victory, but regret. A profound understanding of the wild spirit they had broken. The order was given to release the gorilla. As the massive creature slowly rose, his eyes met those of his captors. There was no hatred in those eyes, no desire for revenge, only a deep, primal sadness. The gorilla turned and lumbered back into the shadows, leaving the men to contemplate the true cost of their victory. They had sought to test the limits of human strength and ingenuity, and they had succeeded. But in doing so, they had also learned a valuable lesson about the delicate balance of nature, a lesson about the need for respect. Even in the face of overwhelming power, the arena stood silent, a monument to the hubris of man and the enduring spirit of the wild. The men filed out, forever changed by their encounter. They had faced their fears, tested their limits. But most importantly, they had learned that true strength lies not in dominance, but in understanding.